designate others to grow their medicine for them, and potentially, although I think it's more difficult to do this, to remove the rights of people to grow medicine for themselves. And we can't let them get away with it. We cannot let them get away with it, because they are going to get away with it unless we push back at them. And I'm not talking about just the kind of pushback that I'm able to do in my role as counsel when somebody gets busted, or if we want to go into court proactively and sue. That's not enough. I mean, there's a reason that the justice minister of this country is the guy being interviewed when the UN says Canada's medical marijuana program is too loosey-goosey. Why is it the justice minister? Well, it's the justice minister because they want it to be under the control of the Department of Justice. Well, the regulations are under the control of Health Canada, not Justice Canada. And yet they're not going to the health and so we need to push back. How can we do that? Well, you need to write to the health minister. You need to tell the health minister about the problems with the program and about how, if you're a medical marijuana user, it benefits you. If you've had trouble accessing the protections supposed to be afforded to people by the system, tell the health minister that. And we need to also be building our evidentiary support. And we've had a lot of it. We were very successful in getting a lot of information through Access to Information Act requests to introduce in the Barron case. Literally a stack of complaints to their call center this thick. Makes a lot of noise when you drop it on the table in front of the witness, and it's all very dramatic. But it's evidence, and they're busy looking for it, finding it. I won't say manufacturing it, but certainly when I see things like pieces of a confidential study leaked from the reporters, I wonder what the real study shows. I wonder what the real information shows. I'm not sure we'll ever find out. But that's sort of where we get, and it really culminates sort of last week with that UN report. Now that UN report's not anything new. So it's warm land, beautiful, beautiful place. The foundation is based in Vancouver. Yeah.
September he was busted, possession of illicit half an ounce of pot. And he was told he wasn't allowed to drink. Well, he got caught drinking and went to jail a little while ago. But the person who was actually, because the bust happened at the same time, it's a small town, Port Hope, Ontario, same time as a man was busted for importing $500,000 worth of heroin from Afghanistan. So there was my son in jail with this other guy because they were busted at the same time and they went to jail together. And he said he's not afraid of jail anymore, and they're expecting him to go to jail March 15th. And he's had to get lawyers that haven't really done anything but collect the money because of the court. So he fired the lawyer because it wasn't really benefiting him. He wants his case done over with and get on with his life. This has gone on for 6 months now. And he did go to jail overnight. Yes. He met somebody from Pakistan who said, in Pakistan, you just pay the cops. You can do anything you want. I don't care. That's really crazy.
Well, I think your story.
You just pay the lawyers. You can do whatever you want.
Your story identifies, I think, a number of problems, right? Number one, I think it's pretty clearly an overcharge, half an ounce. I mean, unless it's individually bagged in the 1 gram baggies, the guy's carrying a scale and a vibrating cell phone. Where's the purpose of trafficking aspect of that small quantity of cannabis? Secondly, the fact that there's, we think about marijuana prohibition and the direct harms it causes people to arrest. Think about the indirect harms it causes. The breach that your son ends up in jail on, and there's court time and jail time, and all of those things have a cost to them. Because he's drinking, has nothing to do with the original offense.
Yeah.
There's no reason he should be banned from drinking. It's just punitive. And number two, then he gets sent in jail because of a breach that he shouldn't have gotten, because marijuana shouldn't be illegal, right? So it's all these consequences that flow from prohibition that aren't necessarily apparent on the first blush. And of course, the final one, and this is what I'd say to anybody that hires a lawyer. It's important to involve yourself in your own case, right? And it's important to educate yourself outside of your conversations with your lawyer. Your conversations with your lawyer are expensive conversations. There's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, it costs a lot of money to go to law school, and you have to pay for your office and all that kind of stuff, and there's a market. Be that as it may, unless you're on legal aid, those are expensive conversations to have. So you've got to go and educate yourself. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And you got to be involved in your own defense. A lot of people sort of are pretty passive, I've seen. And, you know, some good lawyers, some bad lawyers. How do you speak to that, right? They're just not the best.
I was just wondering if briefly you could speak to the fact that many patients that I've gone to have tried to access the medical marijuana program and get shut down by their lawyers, or their lawyers, sorry.
Oh, hey, what are you blaming the lawyers for? We help people get into the program.
Is there any sort of legal way to encourage the doctors to?
Well, there are some ways, and you identify a pretty significant flaw with the current program. There's about 5,000 people in 10 years that have been able to access the protections, the legal protections of the medical marijuana program in this country. We know there's about 1 million medical marijuana users, so half of 1% or so. I see that as a major impediment. Now, the courts have, unfortunately, when presented with this issue, in my view, have erred on the side of too much caution, and they've said, look, yes, there's not great uptake by the doctors, but the test really is this an arbitrary rule that the doctor's involved in the process? I'm not sure that we're ever going to convince a judge that it's arbitrary to have a doctor involved in the process, even as a gatekeeper to legality. And so I think you're right. We need to focus on flipping that. Instead of maybe railing against something that we're not necessarily going to have success against in the courts, let's educate the doctors. And there are doctors now, maybe out of shame because the counterparts in the U.S., the American Medical Association, have endorsed the possibility that cannabis is therapeutic and has medicinal benefits. But there are doctors that are beginning to come around to this point of view. And I think, again, you have to educate yourself. And Michelle's a great resource, obviously, for that, her educational package. You have to educate your doctor. And it has to be a trust-building relationship. Now, I've seen a doctor just very recently say, look, if your doctor won't sign your medical marijuana forms, in my opinion, they have an ethical obligation to refer you to somebody that will. And I think that's a very interesting tactic coming from a doctor. I think it's important. If your doctor won't sign, you say, okay, well, I'd like you to refer me to somebody that will assist me in this process because it does provide me with health benefits, and this is a patient choice. And unfortunately, I respect the fact that you don't endorse it, but help me find a doctor that does. And so let's.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to stick around for a bit too. So.
Cool. Yeah, we have another half hour or so of circus games.